Hello, I am Mike.
Hello, I am Lily. Welcome to English Podcast Flow.
So today we're going to be talking about something,
And I think it's really interesting.
yeah, and it's something that we all do, or at least should be doing more of reading.
Exactly.
But we're not just talking about, the pure enjoyment of getting lost in a good story. We're going deeper than that.
We're going to explore how reading actually changes our brains.
So, I think a lot of times we take reading for granted.
We do.
It's just something we do for fun or whatever, or for school or.
Or for work.
Yeah, but when you actually, look at the science behind it, it's quite remarkable how it shapes our brains.
It is, yeah.
Okay, so before we dive into all the amazing benefits, I have a confession to make. Just this morning, I was trying to remember the name of that actor. You know, the one with the really intense eyes and that sort of crooked smile. Anyway, I totally blanked.
That happens.
And it got me thinking, does reading actually help with memory?
Uh-huh.
Could all those years of devouring books be paying off in ways I don't even realize?
That's a great question. And actually, you're onto something. Studies show that when we read, our brains are constantly working.
Right.
They're piecing together information, like from the letters to the words to the sentences, and ultimately constructing entire worlds in our minds.
Wow.
It's a really complex process.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And just like physical exercise strengthens our muscles, reading exercises, and strengthens our neural pathways.
So you're saying the more I read, the less likely I am to have those embarrassing tip-of-the-tongue moments.
It could be.
I could definitely use a boost in the memory department.
Yes.
But what about intelligence in general?
Uh-huh.
Does reading actually make you smarter?
Well, it's not just about storing information.
Right.
It's about developing the capacity to understand and process that information effectively. It appears that reading exposes us to new vocabulary, different writing styles, and diverse ways of thinking.
Wow.
So you're constantly expanding your mental toolbox, equipping yourself with the tools to think critically and creatively. And that ultimately leads to a deeper understanding of the world around you.
You know, it's funny. Just the other day, I was reading a historical fiction novel and came across the word ephemeral.
Uh-huh.
I had no idea what it meant.
Yeah.
So I looked it up, and now I find myself using it all the time.
Right?
It's like reading literally expands your vocabulary and gives you these new ways to express yourself.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah?
It's about so much more than just sounding intelligent. It's about grasping those subtle nuances of language, which then allow you to articulate your thoughts and ideas more effectively.
Right.
And that ability to communicate clearly and persuasively is valuable in every aspect of life.
Yeah.
From personal relationships to professional success.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
But in a world of constant distractions, with our phones buzzing and notifications popping up every few seconds, does reading actually help you focus better? I mean, I can barely get through a news article without feeling the urge to check social media.
You've hit on a really important point. We're constantly bombarded with information these days.
We are.
And it's easy to feel overwhelmed and scattered.
Yeah.
That's why reading is such a valuable skill. Studies show that when you read, you're training your brain to concentrate on a single task for an extended period of time.
Oh.
You're immersing yourself in a story, blocking out all the noise and distractions. And that sustained attention strengthens your ability to focus in all areas of life.
So it's like a mental boot camp for your attention span.
Yes, exactly.
I definitely need to sign up for that.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, sometimes after a long day, my brain feels completely fried.
Uh-huh.
Does reading actually help with stress?
Yeah.
I would think that adding more mental stimulation would make it worse.
Right.
But maybe I'm wrong.
You might be surprised to hear this, but reading, especially fiction, has been shown to have a remarkable calming effect on the brain.
Oh, wow.
Studies show that even just 6 minutes of reading can significantly reduce your stress levels.
Really?
Think about it. When you get lost in a good book, your brain shifts its focus away from your worries and anxieties.
Uh-huh.
You're transported to another world, and that escapism can be incredibly therapeutic.
Wow, 6 minutes. That's incredible. I spend way more time than that mindlessly scrolling through social media.
I know, right?
And I can tell you, it doesn't exactly leave me feeling calm and relaxed.
No.
Speaking of which, I have a terrible habit of scrolling through my phone in bed, even though I know it's not good for my sleep.
Uh-huh.
Does reading before bed actually help you sleep better?
It's a really common problem.
Right.
And you're right, the blue light emitted from screens can interfere with our sleep cycle. But it appears that reading a physical book before bed, as opposed to staring at a screen, can be a wonderful way to wind down and prepare for sleep.
Okay.
It helps to calm the mind, it reduces mental stimulation, and allows you to gently transition into a more relaxed state.
Okay. I'm officially convinced I'm swapping my phone for a book before bed tonight.
Good.
We've talked a lot about the cognitive benefits of reading, the impact it has on memory, focus, intelligence. But what about the emotional side of things? Does reading help us become more empathetic or compassionate people?
That's a great question, and it's something researchers are increasingly interested in. It appears that reading, especially fiction, can have a profound impact on our emotional intelligence and empathy.
Oh, wow.
When you step into the shoes of different characters, you experience their joys and sorrows.
Right.
You navigate their complex relationships, and in doing so, you expand your capacity for empathy and understanding.
So reading is like a workout for your heart as well as your brain.
Exactly.
I love that idea. You know, I'm curious, a lot of our listeners are learning English. Is there anything specific about reading that could help them on their language journey?
Absolutely. It appears that reading is an incredibly effective way to accelerate language acquisition. Think about it, when you encounter new words and context, it helps us solidify their meaning and usage in your mind. You're also subconsciously absorbing grammar rules and sentence structures through exposure to well-written text. It's like learning by osmosis.
So it's not just about expanding your vocabulary, it's about immersing yourself in the language and developing a more intuitive understanding of how it works.
Yes, exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of people struggle with finding the time to read. Any tips for building a reading habit?
It's a common challenge.
Yeah.
We all lead busy lives.
We do.
And it's easy for reading to get pushed aside. But remember, even small steps can make a big difference. Studies show that you don't need to carve out hours of your day. Start with just 10 minutes each day, maybe during your commute or while you're having your morning coffee. And most importantly, choose material that you genuinely enjoy. It could be novels, biographies, magazines, anything that sparks your interest.
That's really encouraging.
Yeah.
So it's about finding those little pockets of time in our day and making reading a part of our routine, even if it's just for a few minutes.
Right.
This has been incredibly insightful. I'm already feeling inspired to prioritize reading more in my own life.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
And remember, this is just the beginning.
Right.
We've only scratched the surface of this fascinating topic. There's so much more to explore when it comes to the transformative power of reading.
I can't wait to dive deeper. But before we go, I want to hear from our listeners.
Yes.
What are some of your favorite books or reading habits? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to keep this conversation going.
Yes, please do.
There's so much more to explore. We were talking about how reading can improve our focus and concentration.
Yes.
But I'm curious, in a world that's so visually driven,
Yes.
with flashy videos and instant gratification everywhere you look,
Everywhere.
how can we encourage younger generations to embrace the slower, more immersive experience of reading?
Right.
They seem to be growing up with such different habits than we did.
That's such an important question. And it's something educators and parents are grappling with all the time. It appears that it's not about forcing classic literature on them,
Right.
but rather finding ways to make reading relevant and engaging for younger audiences.
I see.
Think about interactive storytelling apps, graphic novels that blend visuals with text, or even incorporating reading into video games. Meeting them where they are and showing them that reading can be just as exciting and stimulating as their favorite video game or YouTube channel.
Those are great ideas. So it's about reframing reading as an adventure, a journey into different worlds and perspectives rather than a chore or something they have to do for school.
Exactly.
I remember when I was a kid, my parents used to read aloud to me every night before bed. And those were some of my fondest memories.
Oh,
It really instilled a love of stories in me from a young age.
that's great.
But I want to shift gears a bit. We talked about how reading can help us understand other people's feelings and develop empathy, but I'd love to dive a little deeper into that.
Yes.
How does that actually work in the brain?
Yeah.
What's going on neurologically when we connect with characters in a book?
It's fascinating, isn't it? It appears that when we read fiction, our brains don't necessarily distinguish between fictional characters and real people.
Oh, wow.
We engage with their emotions, their struggles, their triumphs, as if they were happening to someone we know personally. And that process activates the same neural pathways that are involved in real-life social interactions, strengthening our ability to understand and respond to the emotions of others.
So in a way, it's like a simulation for real-life empathy.
Right.
We're practicing those skills in a safe and controlled environment.
Yes.
And then carrying those lessons over into our interactions with real people.
Exactly.
I've always felt that reading helps me connect with people on a deeper level, but I never really understood the science behind it.
Yeah.
This is giving me a whole new perspective.
I think it's amazing. And what's so powerful about reading is that you're exposed to a wide range of perspectives and experiences that you might not encounter in your everyday life.
Right.
You can step into the shoes of someone from a completely different culture,
Uh-huh.
walk in their footsteps, see the world through their eyes, and that broadens your understanding of humanity in a really profound way.
It's like having a portal to infinite possibilities all within the pages of a book.
It is.
I've traveled to distant countries, lived through historical events, and explored countless cultures, all without ever leaving my armchair.
Amazing.
But I have to ask, are all types of reading equally beneficial?
That's a good question.
Does it matter what we read? Or is any form of reading going to have a positive impact on our brains?
That's a great question, and one that researchers are still trying to fully understand.
Right.
While any type of reading can stimulate the brain and offer benefits, certain types of reading may be particularly effective in developing specific skills.
Okay.
Studies show that reading literary fiction with its complex characters, intricate plots, and nuanced language can be especially effective in enhancing empathy and social cognition.
Oh.
It challenges us to think critically, to grapple with moral dilemmas, and to see the world from multiple perspectives.
So you're saying that diving into a thought-provoking novel might be a better workout for your empathy muscles than skimming a celebrity gossip magazine?
It could be, yes.
Not that there's anything wrong with a little bit of light reading every now and then. We all need to unwind sometimes.
Of course.
But it's interesting to think about how different types of reading might impact our brains in different ways.
Exactly. And I think the key takeaway here is that reading should be enjoyable. The most important thing is to find material that you genuinely connect with, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, poetry, history, science, whatever sparks your interest. The key is to make reading a regular part of your life and to approach it with a sense of curiosity and openness.
That's a great point. It's not about forcing ourselves to read something we find boring or tedious.
Right.
It's about nurturing a love of reading and finding those books that light us up, that transport us to another world, that make us think differently.
Yes.
And I think that's a perfect segue into our next topic, building a sustainable reading habit.
Yes.
We touched on this briefly in the last part, but I'd love to dive a little deeper.
Okay.
What are some practical tips for making reading a regular part of our busy lives?
It appears that it all starts with setting realistic goals.
Okay.
You don't need to aim for marathon reading sessions every day.
Right.
Even just 15 or 20 minutes a day can make a significant difference. The key is consistency. Making reading a daily ritual something you look forward to.
I see.
And one way to do that is to create a specific time and place where you can relax and immerse yourself in a book without distractions.
All right.
Maybe it's first thing in the morning with a cup of coffee during your lunch break or right before bed, whatever works best for you.
It's like creating a sacred space for reading,
Right.
a time and place where you can disconnect from the world and just get lost in a good book.
Exactly.
I love that idea. It makes reading feel more intentional and less like something you're trying to squeeze into an already packed schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Any other tips? I'm always looking for ways to make reading more enjoyable and less of a chore.
Join a book club.
Oh,
It's a fantastic way to connect with other readers, share recommendations, discuss the books you're reading, and it also provides a sense of accountability.
okay.
Knowing that you have a group of people waiting to hear your thoughts on the book can be a great motivator to actually finish it.
That's such a good idea. I've always wanted to join a book club. It seems like such a fun and enriching experience. It adds a social element to reading and makes it feel more like a shared journey.
It does.
What about people who struggle to stay focused while reading?
Mm.
I know I sometimes find my mind wandering, especially if it is a book that's a bit dense or challenging. Any advice for them?
It appears that mindfulness techniques can be incredibly helpful.
Okay.
Before you start reading, take a few deep breaths, clear your mind of distractions, and really try to be present in the moment. If your mind starts to wander gently, guide it back to the text. Don't get discouraged.
Right.
It happens to everyone.
It does.
And don't be afraid to reread sections if you find yourself zoning out.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to slow down and really savor the words to fully grasp their meaning.
Those are great tips. It's like applying the principles of meditation to reading, focusing on the breath being present, gently redirecting the mind when it wanders. And it reminds us that reading isn't a race.
Right.
It's not about getting to the end as quickly as possible, but rather about savoring the experience and allowing the words to wash over you. I think sometimes we forget that in our fast-paced, productivity-obsessed culture.
I agree. It's about slowing down, being present, and appreciating the beauty and power of language. And remember, the more you read, the better you'll become at focusing and absorbing information.
Right.
It's a skill that develops over time like any other skill. So don't be discouraged if you find yourself struggling at first. Just keep practicing, and you'll find it becomes easier and more enjoyable. We've covered so much ground already, but I'm excited to wrap up our conversation by delving into some practical applications of what we've learned.
Me too.
Yeah.
It appears that we've talked about how reading strengthens our cognitive muscles, memory, focus, critical thinking.
Yeah.
But how does that translate to real-life situations?
Right.
Can you give us some concrete examples of how those benefits play out in our everyday lives?
Absolutely. Let's start with the workplace.
Okay.
Imagine you're in a meeting where a lot of complex information is being thrown around, like reports, data, strategies. Someone who reads regularly is likely to be able to absorb and synthesize those details more efficiently than someone who doesn't.
Right.
They've trained their brains to handle that kind of information overload.
That makes perfect sense. It's like they've built up a mental stamina that allows them to navigate those situations with more ease and clarity.
Yes.
They're not getting bogged down by all the details.
Yeah.
They're able to see the bigger picture and extract the key takeaways.
Exactly. And it's not just about processing information. It's about applying it. Studies show that reading widely exposes you to diverse perspectives and approaches to problem solving. So when you're faced with a challenge at work, you're more likely to be able to think outside the box and come up with creative solutions. You've got this mental library of ideas and strategies to draw from.
So reading can actually make you a more valuable asset in the workplace.
It can, yes.
It's not just a personal enrichment activity, it's a professional development tool. I think sometimes we underestimate the practical implications of reading. We tend to focus on the enjoyment factor, which is obviously important, but there's so much more to it than that.
I agree. It really is a superpower for the mind, and those benefits extend to our personal lives as well.
Yeah.
Think about relationships. Reading can enhance our emotional intelligence, allowing us to better understand and respond to the needs of our loved ones. We develop a greater capacity for empathy and compassion.
That's such an important point. We spend so much time trying to improve our communication skills, but sometimes we forget that the foundation of good communication is understanding. And reading helps us develop that understanding both of ourselves and of others. I can definitely see how stepping into the shoes of different characters in novels can help us navigate the complexities of real-life relationships with more sensitivity and awareness.
Absolutely. It's like a training ground for emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
We learn to recognize and navigate complex emotions, both our own and those of others, and that makes us better partners, friends, parents, colleagues, better humans, really.
I love that. And speaking of communication, we briefly touched on how reading can help people learning English. Can you elaborate on that a bit more? I know we have a lot of listeners who are on that journey, and I'm sure they'd be interested to hear your insights.
It appears that reading is one of the most effective ways to accelerate language acquisition. It's about immersing yourself in the language, seeing how it's used in different contexts. Think about it. When you encounter new vocabulary in a book, you're not just memorizing a definition, you're seeing how that word functions in a sentence, how it interacts with other words, how it conveys meaning. And that's how we truly learn a language, by absorbing it organically through exposure and practice.
So it's not just about expanding your vocabulary, it's about developing a feel for the language, a sense of its rhythm and flow.
Exactly.
And I imagine it's particularly helpful for developing a natural conversational tone in spoken English, which could be a real challenge for language learners.
It is, yes. It's about internalizing the nuances of the language, the way native speakers use it, and that comes from reading, from immersing yourself in authentic English texts.
This has been such an enlightening conversation. I feel like I've gained a whole new appreciation for the transformative power of reading. It's not just a hobby. It's a tool for personal growth and development, a way to expand our minds, sharpen our intellect, and enrich our lives in countless ways.
Well said. It's a gift we give ourselves, the gift of knowledge, understanding, and endless possibilities. And the best part is it's accessible to everyone.
It is.
No matter your age, background, or interests, there's a world of knowledge and wonder waiting to be discovered within the pages of a book.
Absolutely. And on that note, as we wrap up this episode, I want to leave our listeners with a challenge.
Okay.
Make a commitment to read something every day. even if it's just for a few minutes. Make it a part of your daily routine and experience the incredible benefits for yourself.
I love that challenge. And remember, it doesn't have to be a chore.
Right.
Choose something that sparks your interest, whether it's a novel, a biography, a magazine article, even just a blog post. The key is to make reading a joyful and enriching experience.
Couldn't agree more. This has been an absolutely incredible journey. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. It's been a true pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this podcast about the power of reading. Keep those pages turning and keep those minds expanding.
And remember, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends.
Yes.
We'll be back soon with more fascinating explorations into the world of knowledge and self-discovery. Until then, happy reading.
Happy reading, everyone.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. It really helps our channel grow and reach more English learners like you. By subscribing, you'll never miss a new episode, and by liking the video, you're letting us know you want more helpful content. Thank you for your support. It means so much to us.